Rome, Italy, a city of marble and blood. Centuries of megalomania, genius, and absolute ruthlessness carved into travertine and volcanic rock. Emperors build it, barbarians sack it, popes resurrect it. Stand in the Roman Forum today, and you are standing on the graveyard of the ancient world. Walk past the Colosseum, and you are following the exact footsteps of gladiators, slaves, and absolute dictators. This is a place where history isn't buried. It is lived in, driven over, and relentlessly present. Using advanced AI techniques, we've transformed centuries-old engravings and faded photographs into living, breathing scenes. We won't just tell this story. You'll see it unfold. From a muddy settlement on the banks of the Tiber River to the glittering, chaotic, monumental metropolis of today, this is the entire history of Rome. Let's begin at the beginning. It's the 8th century BC. The Italian peninsula is a patchwork of warring tribes, speaking different languages, fighting for resources. On a steep, defensible hill overlooking a shallow bend in the Tiber River, a group of Latin shepherds builds a cluster of mud and thatch huts. This is the Palatine Hill. It's not exactly glamorous, but it has salt deposits, it controls a crucial river crossing, and it offers high ground against malaria-carrying mosquitoes. According to the legend, the city is founded in 753 BC by Romulus, a man raised by a wolf who murders his own brother Remus over where to draw the city walls. Fratricide as a founding myth. It tells you everything you need to know about what Rome will become. Violence is baked into the brickwork. The reality of its founding is slower, but no less brutal. They need women to populate their new town, so they invite a neighboring tribe, the Sabines, to a religious festival and abduct their daughters at sword point. The swampy valley below the hill is eventually drained using a massive sewer, the Cloaca Maxima. That drained swamp becomes the Forum. Rome is officially born. For 2 centuries, Rome is ruled by kings, heavily influenced by the advanced Etruscan civilization to the north. But kings don't last forever. In 509 BC, the son of the king rapes a noblewoman named Lucretia. She commits suicide out of shame, and the Roman elite explode in outrage. They overthrow their Etruscan king, Tarquin the Proud. They are done with absolute rule. They create something revolutionary, a republic, SPQR, Senatus Populusque Romanus, the Senate and the people of Rome. Power is divided. 2 consuls are elected each year to prevent any one man from becoming a tyrant. It's an oligarchy masquerading as a democracy, but it works. Rome expands, conquering neighboring tribes, absorbing their gods, stealing their technology, and demanding their manpower. But in 390 BC, disaster strikes. A tribe of Gauls sweeps down from the north, crushes the Roman army, and burns the city to the ground. They demand massive amounts of gold to leave. It's a humiliation that scars the Roman psyche forever. Rome learns a hard lesson. If you want to survive, you don't just build stronger walls. You conquer everyone who could possibly threaten you. By the 3rd century BC, Rome controls the entire Italian peninsula. But they have a problem. Across the Mediterranean sites Carthage, a massive, wealthy maritime empire in North Africa. Rome doesn't want to share the sea. What follows are the Punic Wars, a century-long deathmatch of staggering scale. Rome, a land power, literally finds a wrecked Carthaginian warship, reverse engineers it, and builds a massive navy from scratch in a matter of months. But in 218 BC, the Carthaginian general Hannibal does the impossible. He marches an army, complete with war elephants, over the freezing Alps and drops into Italy. For 15 years, he annihilates Roman legions. At the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, 50,000 Romans are slaughtered in a single afternoon. The blood soaks the earth. Rome is on its knees. Every family loses a son. But Rome refuses to die. They refuse to surrender. They raise new armies. They adapt. They attack Carthage's holdings in Spain, and eventually, Africa itself. In 146 BC, Roman legions under Scipio Aemilianus finally breach the walls of Carthage. They slaughter the population, burn the city to ash, and wipe their greatest rival from the face of the earth. Rome isn't just a regional power anymore. It is the undisputed master of the Mediterranean. But the Republic is rotting from the inside. Wealth floods into Rome. Millions of slaves flood into Italy. The rich elite buy up all the land, creating massive agricultural plantations, while ordinary Roman citizens are left destitute, crowding into the filthy streets of the capital. In 133 BC, a populist politician named Tiberius Gracchus tries to pass land reform to help the poor. The Senate beats him to death with wooden chairs and throws his body in the Tiber. Political violence is now normalized. The 1st century BC is a bloodbath of civil wars. Warlords like Marius and Sulla march their own armies into Rome. Sulla posts hit lists on the forum walls, paying bounties for the severed heads of his political enemies. In 73 BC, a gladiator named Spartacus leads a massive slave rebellion. When the Romans finally crush it, they crucify 6 0 slaves along the Appian Way. The stench of rotting bodies stretches for miles. The Republic is eating itself alive. And then comes Julius Caesar. He's brilliant, charismatic, heavily in debt, and astronomically ambitious. He forms a political alliance, secures an army, and spends 8 years conquering Gaul, modern-day France. He kills 1 million people and enslaves 1 million more. He is wildly popular with the people and deeply feared by the Senate. In 49 BC, ordered to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen, he makes a different choice. He crosses the Rubicon River with his legions. The Republic collapses into civil war. Caesar wins, making himself dictator for life. He reforms the calendar, plans massive building projects, and forgives his enemies. But the old guard has other ideas. On March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March, Caesar walks into the theater of Pompey. 60 senators surround him. They stab him 23 times. He bleeds out at the base of a statue of his rival, Pompey. They think they've saved the Republic. They've only guaranteed its final destruction. Out of the chaos emerges Caesar's 19-year-old adopted heir, Octavian. He is cold, calculating, and utterly ruthless. By 27 BC, after another grueling decade of civil war, he has crushed all his rivals, including Mark Antony and Cleopatra. He changes his name to Augustus. He is the first Roman emperor. He famously boasts that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. He isn't lying. For the next 2 centuries, Rome is the center of the world. By the 1st century AD, the population hits 1 million people. It is a megacity of staggering wealth and crushing poverty. Aqueducts bring hundreds of millions of gallons of fresh water into the city every day. Public baths the size of small towns are built. But underneath the marble, it's a filthy, overcrowded, dangerous place. The urban poor live in towering wooden apartment blocks called insulae that constantly catch fire or collapse. In 64 AD, a massive fire destroys 2/3 of the city. The Emperor Nero uses the cleared land to build himself a massive golden palace. The people are furious. Nero needs a scapegoat, so he blames a small, weird Eastern cult called Christians, burning them alive as human torches to light his gardens. In 80 AD, the Emperor Titus opens the Flavian Amphitheater. We know it as the Colosseum. It is built using the gold looted from the temple in Jerusalem and the sweat of 60 Zaozeran Jewish slaves. You can still walk through its massive stone arches today. Picture 50 Zaozi people screaming. The smell of blood, sweat, and exotic animals roasting in the Mediterranean sun. Gladiators fighting to the death. Entire species of animals, like the North African elephant, wiped out for afternoon entertainment. Bread and circuses. Keep the mob fed with free grain. Keep them entertained with blood, and they won't rebel. By the year 117 AD, under the Emperor Trajan, the Roman Empire stretches from the moors of Scotland to the deserts of Iraq. Rome is the capital of a state containing 20% of the world's population. The Emperor Hadrian rebuilds the Pantheon, pouring the largest unreinforced concrete dome in human history. It still stands perfectly intact today. The city seems eternal, but empires don't last forever. The 3rd century brings unprecedented chaos. A devastating plague ravages the city. The economy hyperinflates. Over a span of 50 years, there are 26 emperors, and almost all of them are murdered by their own troops. Rome is suddenly highly vulnerable. In 271 AD, the Emperor Aurelian looks at the undefended city and panics. He builds the Aurelian Walls, a massive 12-mile brick ring around Rome with 383 towers. You can still see large sections of them today. It's a stunning piece of engineering, but it's also a confession of weakness. Rome is saying, we are no longer invincible. The borders are cracking. Everything changes in the 4th century. In 312 AD, 2 rival emperors meet at the Milvian Bridge just outside Rome. One of them, Constantine, supposedly sees a vision of a Christian cross in the sky. He wins the battle. He legalizes Christianity. The persecuted, underground cult rapidly becomes the religion of the empire. He builds the first St. Peter's Basilica over the supposed grave of the martyred apostle. But Constantine does something else that dooms the city. He moves the capital. He builds a new, glittering city in the east, Constantinople. Rome is downgraded. It is no longer the center of political power. It's just a symbolic museum, living on past glory, stripped of its political relevance. And then, the nightmare arrives. On August 24th, 410 AD, the unthinkable happens. Alaric and his army of Visigoths breach the Salarian Gate. For the first time in 800 years, Rome falls to a foreign enemy. They loot, they burn, they pillage for 3 days. When the news reaches Bethlehem, the scholar Jerome writes, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken." But worse is coming. In 455 AD, the Vandals sack the city again, spending 2 weeks systematically stripping the bronze off the roofs and emptying the palaces. In 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor, a teenager named Romulus Augustus, is quietly deposed by a Germanic general. The empire in the west is dead. But the true catastrophe hits in the 6th century. During a grinding, apocalyptic war between the Byzantine Empire and the Ostrogoths, the ancient aqueducts are cut. Without running water, a 1 million-person city cannot survive. The population plummets. From 1 million, it drops to 500, Zaren, then 100, Zaren, and eventually barely 30 Zaren people. Rome becomes a ghost town. The monumental marble buildings are completely abandoned. Cows graze in the Roman Forum. It becomes known as the Campo Vaccino, the cow field. Earth gradually covers the ancient streets. The Colosseum is used as a massive quarry, its iron clamps ripped out, its stone stolen to build medieval houses. If you live in Rome in the 9th century, you live in a tiny, filthy medieval village huddled around the bend in the river, surrounded by the colossal, rotting skeletons of a civilization you can no longer comprehend. But Rome has a weapon: the Pope. The Bishop of Rome claims spiritual authority over all of Western Europe. On Christmas Day, 800 AD, Pope Leo III crowns the Frankish king Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor in St. Peter's. Rome is pivoting. If it can't rule by military force, it will rule by faith. Kings and pilgrims flock to the city, bringing gold. But medieval Rome is a violent, lawless place. Powerful noble families like the Orsini and the Colonna turn the ancient ruins into personal fortresses. They fight bloody street battles for control of the papacy. It gets so bad that in 1309, the Pope simply leaves. The papacy moves to Avignon in France for nearly 70 years. Rome is abandoned again. The population drops to 17, Zeros. It is a dangerous, malaria-ridden ruin where wolves roam the streets at night. Then comes the 15th century. The popes return for good, and they bring the Renaissance with them. They want to rebuild Rome to reflect the glory of God and their own massive egos. They clear streets, restore the ancient aqueducts, and hire the greatest artists in human history. In 1508, a grumpy, brilliant 33-year-old sculptor named Michelangelo is forced by the warrior Pope Julius II to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. He spends 4 years on his back, dripping paint into his eyes, creating a masterpiece that redefines Western art. In 1506, they begin tearing down Constantine's 200-year-old basilica to build a new St. Peter's, the largest church in the world. Rome is announcing itself again. It is wealthy, corrupt, and glittering. But the party can't last. In 1527, the geopolitical tensions of Europe explode inside the city walls. An army of 20 Yazis are mutinous, unpaid, heavily armed mercenaries belonging to the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V breaks into Rome. What follows is the sack of Rome. It makes the ancient barbarian invasions look tame. For 9 straight months, the soldiers torture, rape, and murder the population. Priests are mutilated. Nuns are sold in the streets. The Pope, Clement VII, barely escapes down a secret elevated corridor to the Castel Sant'Angelo, protected by the suicidal last stand of the Swiss Guard. He watches his city burn from the fortress walls. Half the population is killed or flees. Bodies pile up in the streets, bringing plague. The smell of death hangs over the city for years. And yet, within a generation, the city rebuilds. This is the quiet truth of Rome. It gets knocked down, and it gets back up. Always. The 17th century brings the Counter-Reformation. The Catholic Church is fighting the rise of Protestantism, and they use art as a weapon. They want to overwhelm the senses. This is the Baroque era. The city is transformed into a highly theatrical stage set. A genius named Gian Lorenzo Bernini sculpts marble so perfectly it looks like soft flesh. He designs the massive embracing colonnade of St. Peter's Square. His bitter rival, Francesco Borromini, designs churches with twisting, undulating walls that defy geometry. They build spectacular fountains, like the Trevi, supplied by the restored ancient aqueducts. By the 18th century, Rome is a mandatory stop on the Grand Tour for wealthy young Europeans. It is a city of elegant piazzas, staggering art, and deep aristocratic decay. Everything changes in the 19th century. Italy is a patchwork of independent states, but a fierce movement for national unification is sweeping the peninsula. The Pope clings to temporal power, protected by a garrison of French troops. But in 1870, the French withdraw to fight the Prussians. On September 20th, 1870, Italian troops blast a hole in the ancient Aurelian walls near the Porta Pia. They pour into the city. The Pope retreats to the Vatican, declaring himself a prisoner. Rome is annexed. It isn't just a papal city anymore. It is the capital of a newly united Italy. And capital cities need infrastructure. Entire medieval neighborhoods are ruthlessly bulldozed to build massive, blocky government ministries and wide, Parisian-style boulevards. The population explodes from 200 to 500,000 in just a few decades. But darker times are coming. In 1922, a journalist turned political agitator named Benito Mussolini organizes the March on Rome. The king caves to the pressure. Mussolini becomes prime minister and soon, absolute dictator. He wants to build a new Roman Empire. Fascism uses the ancient past as a theatrical prop. Mussolini orders the destruction of a densely populated medieval neighborhood to build the Via dei Fori Imperiali, a massive parade route driving straight through the ancient imperial forums. He wants a clear view of the Colosseum from his balcony at the Palazzo Venezia. Beauty and authoritarianism go hand in hand. In 1940, Mussolini drags Italy into World War II alongside Nazi Germany. It is an unmitigated disaster. By 1943, the Allies are bombing Rome. On July 19th, 0 bombs fall on the San Lorenzo district, killing 3 Aul-Zeran people. The king arrests Mussolini, but the Nazis rapidly occupy the city. For 9 agonizing months, Rome endures a brutal SS occupation. On October 16, 1943, the Gestapo raids the Jewish ghetto, arresting over 1,000 Zeran Roman Jews. They are sent to Auschwitz. Only 16 survive. The exact number is lost to history, but the shame remains. In March 1944, the Nazis execute 335 Italian civilians in the Ardeatine caves in a brutal reprisal killing. Finally, on June 4, 1944, American troops enter the city. Rome is liberated. The post-war years bring an economic miracle. The 1950s and 60s are the era of La Dolce Vita. Hollywood on the Tiber, Vespas zipping past ancient ruins, paparazzi chasing movie stars into the Trevi Fountain. The city expands rapidly, uncontrollably, sprawling out into the surrounding countryside in massive rings of concrete apartment blocks. The 1970s bring the years of lead, a decade of political terrorism where communist and fascist paramilitaries fight in the streets, culminating in the kidnapping and murder of former Prime Minister Aldo Moro, whose body is left in the trunk of a car in the historic center. Today, Rome is a city of 2.8 million people. It receives over 10 million visitors a year. It faces real, staggering challenges. The traffic is chaotic. The public transport struggles. The sheer weight of maintaining 3,000 years of exposed history is an administrative nightmare. Every time they try to dig a new subway line, they hit an ancient Roman villa and construction stops for a decade. Rome isn't perfect. Its history is deeply scarred by absolute cruelty, mass slavery, religious violence, and fascist megalomania. But this city gave the world the foundations of law, architecture, and engineering. It is the birthplace of the Republic. From that muddy hill of violent shepherds to the glittering capital of the ancient world, to a medieval ghost town, to the complex, maddening, spectacularly beautiful city it is today, Rome's story is one of relentless survival. It is the eternal city, not because it never falls, but because it refuses to stay down. If you enjoyed this journey through time, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into our world's most fascinating cities. Don't forget to comment below the city you'd love to see next. And as always, we'll see you in the past.